good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Andre Combrink. I'm the lead sales engineer at Citrix. I'm really excited to be here, and it's been a great session so far. Lots of good content, and John and Anthony really covered a lot of the why and the why now aspects of Citrix, and also why changing, right? And so really what I'd like to do today is go into a little bit more detail around why, the how of what we are doing. And I'd be talking to you about our application delivery story. So I trust you can see my screen already. Let's just see. Is it sharing there, Helen? I'm sorry, I can't see it myself. One of the key slogans I'd say that we have in Citrix today is that application experience really is the new currency that we find ourselves in. So let me just move on from here. So today, what we'll be looking at is the application delivery controller, and really what that is. And for many of you, it may be a straightforward concept. And I thought I'll just cover it off briefly, what it's all about. And so in its simplest form, really, the ADC is a network load balancer of servers. And one of the primary goals of this load balancer is to improve availability of those backend servers. So, for example, assume that you had 3 of the same websites in your data center that clients need to connect to. So instead of connecting to the server directly, they connect to this ADC. And the ADC would then use its advanced health monitors to determine the state of services in the backend so that it can accept incoming requests from clients and then balance those connections according to rules that you define. So these could be round robin, it could be based on the server that's least busy. And these don't really just have to be web servers. They could be application or database servers. And this really allows for a smarter traffic control, depending on what happens in the backend. And so, for example, with content switching, it's a policy that we could use to define how we direct a request based on, say, for example, the URL that the user has entered. Or if you've got a database in the backend, really about looking at that intent. And intent is something we'll speak about a little bit later again, looking at the intent of that connection, which database would be best suited to serve that transaction. And so to cater for this availability of the ADC itself, we could either run this as a high availability pair or as a cluster spanning across 32 different nodes. And we can even run these ADCs in different geographical locations to provide users and customers with global server load balancing. This really speaks to what Anthony already discussed about where you run your different workloads from. And one of the questions in the chat earlier was about where you could run your different environments, your different desktops from. And the ADC is really some of that capability in the backend that allows you to do that. In fact, this ADC can sit between different layers to allow the solution to scale where it's needed to improve the availability of each of these layers. And this is what we really traditionally call the 3-tier application approach. So when we talk about the way traffic flows, we typically talk about this client to server traffic, that north-south direction of traffic. But modern applications of today are moving towards this containerized approach, typically running in a Kubernetes environment. And so load balancing these microservices requires a more automated and orchestrated approach with an ability to also manage this east-west traffic. Okay, so that was a quick introduction of what the ADC is and as a typical load balancer. And what we looked at is just a perspective on the ADC of increasing the availability of applications and APIs. But there are other reasons for us to have an ADC that's necessary. So in many cases, these could even be the compelling reasons for adopting an ADC. Things like security, client-server connection offloading, performance, a management of your environment. All of these are valid reasons for this ADC solution to come into play. application experience is the new currency, as I said, and applications and APIs have become the greatest asset of many organizations today. And it's really safe to say that we live in an application and API economy. In 2020, Citrix found that the use of APIs have grown exponentially. And as a key part of many organizations in their digital transformation efforts. Now, APIs are a source of revenue for some companies, and they are focused on delivering services or delivering digital data. And at this time of the study, Citrix found that 83% of all web traffic out there today were from APIs now. And this number is today probably even higher. And so as a result of these APIs being exposed, mostly to the web, 90% of applications are going from being graphical interfaces to being APIs. And the drawback to this is that we now have this increased attack surface. It makes these APIs and applications a lot more vulnerable if you think about all those endpoints that the connections can go to. And so this has led to a gap in the solutions that actually protect those investments in APIs. As a result, 76% of IT leaders are moving away from this static security approach, adopting ways where their networks and network security become an integrated solution. And if you're interested in more around that integration of solutions, we also have a SASE security story. So if you're interested in that, reach out to Troye, and we'll gladly set up a session for you on that. Now, whether these are traditional applications or those microservices applications, or whether they are APIs, the resources to be protected, regardless of the connection source, is very important. So it could be that the connection source is a known person using a corporate device like we have here, but it could also include our customers, and it may be that they want to have access to our services. It could just be a bot that is trying to gain certain information, or just querying a specific API in the backend. But these sources can also become a threat to us, and whether they are malicious threats or not, we need to protect our assets. And the approaches to do this also have to fit that scenario so that we don't exacerbate a problem. And, you know, as Anthony described earlier, it's all about that experience, that security and the flexibility. And it could be, you know, our approach to this could be a simple firewall ACL. It could be in the form of DDoS protection. It could be TLS certificates. And these are things that the ADC will allow us to do. But in more advanced cases, it could be policy-driven rewrite and responder actions. It could be a highly complex web application firewall. But now, to add even more value, the ADC includes additional functionality like rate limiting. It's got a mature authentication, authorization, and auditing engine for managing a lot of your authentication needs, and even providing the ability to have an SSL VPN connection going into it. You know, and we spoke about security, and we speak about experience. Often security features that are enabled leads to a reduction in user experience. But at Citrix, we don't see these as mutually exclusive. Our solutions show that enterprise-grade security doesn't have to get in the way of a good user performance. And servers and other platforms where applications are delivered from don't need to waste resources on network and certificate management. Once we put an ADC in the path of these connections, the layer 4 and SSL handshake activity can be offloaded onto the ADC. And this really frees up those resources in the backend for that better application performance and the better user experience. This includes various TCP and other protocol optimizations. With web content, we can either cache it on a separate server or retrieve it from a separate location. Again, really for the better user experience. These traffic selectors that we use it for rate limiting as well, that although they are supposed to they select the data, that the incoming connections, and they can identify connections that are taking up too much resources and throttle those connections back to be fair to other connections as well. In January 2020, so January this year, the Troye group conducted some performance testing on our Citrix ADC, which they compared with competitive products out there. And during these tests, they made use of a variety of different metrics. So small packet sizes was the one. We chose a 30 kilobit packet size, for example, kilobytes, excuse me, rather than a 3 meg packet size, which is often used in data sheets to measure throughput performance. And so the rate of packet handling on a 30 kilobyte size becomes a lot more relevant, and also very realistic for that throughput. They're using TLS 1.2 and 1.3 encrypted traffic, which is more relevant for today. Oops, sorry, pressed that one incorrectly. They measured the latency, the CPU utilization, idle conditions, and conditions when the unit was under load. And in both the virtualized and containerized environments and form factors that we are using, our Citrix ADC delivers a better result in every variant of the test, which means better latency, more transactions per second, and a lower CPU on your box. And although these tests were conducted in virtual and the container form factor, the Citrix ADC is available in a variety of other form factors to suit any scenario. So using the same source code, which is really a testament to the software first approach that our engineers have taken in developing this solution, you can deliver applications from a platform that best suits your needs. You don't have to compromise on security and performance when choosing that platform. It includes virtual options through the marketplace of public cloud providers. There are bare metal installations. There are hardware appliances for single tenants and for appliances for multiple tenants. But consistent performance is one aspect. This Citrix ADC brings with it true hybrid multi-location deployments with a consistent configuration and security posture like no other vendor. And to manage all of these different deployments across all these different locations is the Citrix Application Delivery Manager, or ADM. And with ADM, you have a complete inventory of your applications with this at-a-glance view of the state of those applications, with filters included. And you can see right away here a red, amber, green view of which of those applications your administrators will need to focus in on. We have very advanced AI and machine learning capabilities to provide information on various metrics with anomalies that proactively give you insight into the behavior of different applications. And those anomalies could include servers that are underutilized versus servers that are overutilized. In both those cases, it could be of concern and something for you to focus on. We have a great service graph, fantastic for the idea of microservices, to allow you to drill into specific applications of concern, whether these are traditional apps, microservices apps, and going all the way back into the backend services of those. We have an auto configuration approach, which we call style books, that ADM provides this functionality for to manage and migrate configurations. So if you want to move from maybe your cloud environment onto a Nutanix platform, you can do that with your style books as well. And to realign your ADCs where configuration drift has crept in. And our security dashboard really ties in with the web application firewall, giving you this score of your threats, the threats that your applications are facing, contrasted with that safety index, just to make sure that you actually have the safety despite the threats that you are facing. Another great dashboard is into this API gateway. One of the things that we'll learn later on is concern that CISOs out there have today about these APIs and where the APIs is, having that application inventory and knowing where the actual API latencies are occurring, and the ADM gives you that at a glance. Coming back to firewalling as well, one of the great features that the ADM allows you to do, and typically for customers that are not familiar with an application firewall capabilities and how to configure that, our ADM has the capability to go and test your websites for you and actually make recommendations on the type of tests that you can go and enable in your environment. And then managing and maintaining certificates in the deployment across all of your applications is simplified. This ADM dashboard highlights where certificates are in place, but not those that are not used and those that are being used, and where those certificates are bound with secure versus insecure ciphers and protocols. So very useful for many organizations. Many of the vulnerabilities that are released from our ADC platform is available right out of the ADM service, so that you're able to see at a glance when an ADC that's running in your environment is vulnerable or exposed to any of these new announcements. And you have this capability from the ADM to actually go and deploy the remedies and the mitigation measures easily through an automated procedure. From a licensing perspective, ADM also gives you the flexibility to keep all your throughput and instances in this central pool and allocate this to the ADCs that need it most. A great example of how the hybrid adoption of cloud and multiple platforms doesn't mean that you have to commit yourself into locking into that specific platform. So I realize this has gone really quickly. We have limited time today, but as a recap, our application delivery solution provides this top grade protection for your websites with industry leading performance on hardware and virtual platforms. So strong visibility, good reporting and management to deploy those latest ciphers and protocols in the case of SSL certificates. It is a ICSA lab certified firewall and high availability solution. The web application firewall gives you access to an IP reputation database, signatures to protect your assets against OWASP top 10 and many other known threats out there. And protecting microservice-based applications is as important as those monolithic apps. And the ADC offers a consistent security posture across both of these, protecting that north, south, and the east-west traffic inside your services mesh. So this really allows your developers to embrace this idea of open source, using our solutions even to offload other tasks like TLS onto the ADC, so that they can focus on developing solutions that actually delivers those services, and those microservices can focus on delivering the products that it was designed for. The ADC also protects your APIs both within the service mesh and between your microservices. This really makes your troubleshooting and visibility a lot better within that environment. So the ADC is also a bot management solution with the intelligence to identify good bots, such as chat bots, from bad bots, such as those click fraud bots. And you can see quite a few on the screen here. And bear in mind that bots doesn't have to just be bots themselves or specific automations, but it could also be scripts, it could be toolkits, and identifying the differences between those become really important. And so what you need in a solution to protect your applications is something that understands those threats. So we're looking at the negative security model, having the ability to specify signatures or using IP reputation or block lists to identify where threats could come from. But then you also need something from a positive approach, understanding what normal looks like when the users are accessing their environment. Should you be blocking them or should you allow them? And learning that is very important. And then the hybrid of those is also possible on our web application firewall. And I'm conscious of time, so I'll quickly rush through this. So just looking at this portfolio again, our ADC is available on these virtual different platforms managed through this application delivery management service that can be managed by your internal team if you have the skills in-house, or you can opt for the Citrix managed option as a cloud delivered service that is easy to deploy, provides the fastest time to value. It is really intent driven. So you can build your policies based on outcomes and business needs. That's awesomely automated to reduce that operational overhead on your IT team. It's internet aware, so you don't have any blind spots when delivering those applications over the internet. It gives you this holistic view of your applications and APIs to provide a single pass architecture to cover all of the bases that you need. And it's self-healing. It's got the ability to maintain app experience through app optimization and remediation. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. With that, I'm going to hand you back to Helen for some more competition and Q&A.